sit. And we are good to go. Let's check if everything is working fine. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay, it seems everything is working fine. Let me sit into my original position here. And let me know, dear Annie, if we can start. Let me know.
We're good.
You're good? Okay. So welcome everyone in my very new episode of my Dev Live show today. I'm honored that Annie Fox joined us for today's episode. She was working on a lot of video games like Bot series and Sherlock Holmes games, and also wrote a lot of awesome books. One of them that I also read, The Little Things That Kill, book called. And I'm very honored, like I said before, that you joined us for today's episode, and very thankful. Like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
I'm Annie Fox, and I'm a writer of young adult fiction. That's my current incarnation, but as Otto just told you, I, in a former life, was a game designer, mostly creating content for kids. Yeah.
I see. Thank you for that. So my question would be, what was your very first contact with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your past?
Wow. Okay, that's a great question.
Thank you.
We had the opportunity to play a game called Hunt the Wumpus.
Okay.
Um, it was a text-based game, probably with X's and O's and things like that, way, way back
I see.
on a teletypewriter that was connected to a mainframe in Lawrence Hall of
I
Science
see.
in Berkeley. That was it.
I see. And from that point of your life, what was the first click or moment when you realized that you also would like to work on games? Because you
Well,
loved playing games, I guess. And what was the first time when you realized that, okay, you would like to be creative about games as well, not just
well,
playing
I've
them?
got to say that it's probably my husband, David Fox's influence more than my desire to create
I see.
computer games.
I see.
I like to joke and say he dragged me kicking and screaming into the computer age. We started the Marin Computer Center, which was the world's first public access microcomputer center back in 1977. And I thought that my role there would be to teach because I
I
have
see.
a background in education, and that he would keep all the hardware and software going. And it was kind of like that. But I started to realize when I saw the kids interacting with the computers that this was another way for me to create
True.
content for children.
True. And we talked about that before, like some days ago, that games back then were have this option to teach kids as well. Nowadays it's like less rare that games are made to teach kids, right? But back then all these games like Pot series as well and the whole Among Us collection were really down to the table to like teach kids. Even if it was like the language skills, but even if it's like simple tasks, right? So or tasks that they could
Well,
learn.
I think that there's a lot of ways to describe education and how we learn and what does it mean to teach a child.
True.
If you are creating a game with empathetic characters and problems to solve on a storyline, you're also teaching, even though it might not be hard
True.
skills
True.
like
True.
math, reading, or language.
True.
You're
True.
teaching kids how to behave in the world,
True.
how to be good people.
True. It's very true. Yeah. So I believe that all of us creators who make our own craft, we always tend to put our inner soul in it, our inner self, even if it's like experiencing loss in the past or love or anything that we experienced in the past. Is this statement of mine true for your projects as well that you worked on, even if it was a game or even if it was like a book that you were writing? And what examples could you name of
Well,
these?
I think as a creative person, there's no way to block
Okay.
the input of your inner soul into what you create. It's kind of like your fingerprint, or it's your breath on the thing that you're creating.
I
I
see.
think sometimes it's a subconscious process,
I see.
but It's going to happen and you can't
True,
block
true,
it.
true, 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 true. Could you name some examples, by the way, that are the dearest examples to you, even if it's
Well, I'm
about
thinking,
games, even if it's about
yeah,
books?
I'm thinking about the Putt Putt series, for example.
Okay,
We had a lot of what we call interactive, repeatable things, random things that would happen in the environment as
I
the
see.
player was on a path to, for example, get Putt Putt, the money that he needed to get a balloon and get a car wash and find a pet for the pet parade. There were other things that happened. You could see an empty soda can, for example, on the side of the road, and if you clicked on it, it's like, and put it in the recycling bin, there would be a cute animation that would get triggered as it, twirled in the air and landed in
I
the
see, I
bin with
see, I
sound
see.
effects. And so this is positive reinforcement essentially for being a good citizen, for being a steward of your environment, and that's definitely a part of who I am. And so it was a no-brainer to put that in there. Why not?
I see, I see, I see. And what about your books? What is your dearest like example of having this
Yes.
inner
Okay,
self?
well, the first children's book that I wrote,
Okay,
it's called People Are Like Lollipops, and it was really a celebration of diversity.
I see.
And it was written in the early 70s and published by a New York publisher. And at that time, it was important for me as a graduate student who was studying about how kids learn. And again, I I am always interested in making the world a better place, and that
I
starts
can
with
relate
one
to that.
child.
Yeah,
Yes, so it's with one child's heart opening and their mind opening, and so this little book, likening the difference between different kind of lollipops and different kind of people, but when you come right down to it, all lollipops are just lollipops. All people are just people.
true, true,
And
true.
so again, that was me infusing a part of who I am to wanting to open up an idea for children
I see, I see,
to take as their own.
I see, I see. So we talked about like your first contact with video games and also how you transition from that to work on video games. But what about writing? When you realized that you would like to be a writer as well and express your thoughts through the form of writing?
I don't think one makes a decision consciously. I want to be a
I
writer. I
see, I
think
see,
I think it's true of any art form.
I see,
You are exposed to it, whether it's music or dance or
I see, I
photography
see,
or a wonderful book, and you go, wow, that touched my heart. I would like to try and express myself in that way.
I see.
And if it's a match between a talent that you have that you may not be aware of and an art form, then it feels good and becomes
True,
not self-perpetuating, but self-reinforcing. It's like I feel good when I'm in this creative process.
true, true,
I
true,
want to do more of it. And
true,
then, if you're lucky enough, and other people respond to it in positive ways, that's more reinforcement for you to continue doing
true,
it. And you get better at it because every art form is a skill and you
true,
get better at it as
true,
you practice it.
true, very true, very true. Have you always had this positive attitude to the world, by the way, and that you wanted to give your best to change the world for the better? Or is it something that developed out through the years of your experiences in
Um,
life? How do you feel about it? Because you're a very
I
kind person, right? In my opinion, and you always give to the people, even if you were working on games or even if you were writing your books or even if you just speak with people, right? And I can tell that you're a good person. Was it
Thank
always something that was there for you, or you had some times when like you found
you.
it very hard in
Um,
be like this?
I think that for me personally, I've always been introspective.
I see,
I've always been the kind of person who observes other people,
I
and when
see,
I see that there's something, whether it's a smile or a joke or a kindness that will make someone else happy, again, that is reinforcing.
I
It's
see.
like it makes me feel good to
True,
make
true, true,
other people feel
true,
better. That's what kindness is
true,
about.
true, true,
There's a difference between well, like empathy
true,
is you feel what someone else is feeling, but compassion is taking the next step. Compassion is actually doing something
true,
to make someone feel better
true,
rather than just, oh, they feel bad and you stand there with your hands in your
true,
pockets
true,
versus I could just say, "Are you okay?" That's an act of compassion,
True.
and that's a higher level of caring, and I think, I've always had a very soft heart. I'll tell you, Otto, personally, that, sometimes I've felt it would be easier not to feel things as intensely as I feel
I
things.
can
You
relate
could
to
go
that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you can
Yeah.
go through life, maybe with, fewer ups and downs
True. True.
if
True.
you feel less deeply and feel less
True.
deeply, but I have no control of that. That's the way I'm wired,
True. True.
and
True. True.
yeah.
True. What helped you go through hard times if you had any hard times in your life?
Oh, well, yes, of course. My dad died suddenly when I was 15,
Sorry
and
to
that
hear that.
was definitely a, thank you, a defining moment
I see.
for me as a 15-year-old to recognize, um this doesn't all last forever, you know?
True.
Sometimes not only does your life change in a moment, but your life can end in a moment.
True.
So you've got a finite amount of time, even though it's a little bit morbid to think about. It
True.
also, I think, makes us more courageous in what we're
True.
willing to do, the
True.
way we
True.
reach
True.
out to people. It's kind
True.
of like, well, why wait? And if not now,
True.
when am I going to do
Very
this?
true. Very true. We realize we have not that much time in in this earth, right? So
Right. And so I've always been kind of interested in the afterlife and the way we live
I
our
see.
lives here and now,
I see.
and reincarnation and things like that, um, which is, why I wrote The Little Things That Kill. It's always been kind of, it goes back for me to that trauma of losing my dad at
I
age
see.
15,
I see.
and then exploring in my own mind, what happens after we die, what happens with those of us who are left behind, and
I
what
see.
choices do we make.
I see. I see. Do you believe, by the way, in afterlife?
I think I must, because I've written that book,
True.
but
True. 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 That's why I asked it.
I'm not sure if it's a comforting thought that people have or
I
I
see.
actually believe it. I am not a strongly religious person. I don't have strongly held
I see.
beliefs
I see.
in that kind of way, but I think, yeah, I think that when we meet people and there's an instant connection, there's a part of me that thinks I must have known this person in a past life.
True. True. True.
And
True.
we're just picking up where we left off. It definitely felt that way when David and I met. It was like, wow, this feels so familiar. Did we make some agreement that we would meet again, centuries
Who
later,
knows? Who
and we
knows,
just
right?
exactly, who knows? So, I'm fanciful in my imagination, so
I
why
love
not?
that. I love that. I love that. Yeah. I do think, by the way, it's always start with teaching kids and educating them to be good. Because, like, I read some of your other books as well, where you like try to teach all the kids to be kind to each other and also not to worry about like society criticism that they have around themselves. Why do you think like why do you think like it's important for you to teach
Well, how
kids?
kids can't grow up by themselves,
True.
and there are enough aggressive and negative role models in media that if we don't counter those messages, then we're going to raise yet another generation of
True.
uncaring people.
True.
And so, if you can, I mean, you're not going to save the world, but if you can touch one heart, there's a ripple effect. And so, it's
True.
always seemed to me that because I have a talent for writing stories and for connecting with kids, that if I don't use it, I'm missing an opportunity.
True. True.
I think of it as my way to make a more peaceful world.
True. 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 Why it is so appealing, by the way, for nowadays people to hate on each other? Why do you think it's
Yeah,
happening
I
so
don't get
much?
it. I totally don't. I don't understand it. The only thing the way I can think of it psychologically is this is what I used to say to my kids: happy campers do not target other people for sport. Okay,
Very
by
true.
this
Very
I
true.
mean if you don't have if you don't have something going on inside of you,
True.
if you have something going on inside of you, you're going to either react in two ways. You're going to attack other people, or you're going to withdraw into yourself and build a
True.
wall around you.
True.
So the people you see as the haters online, they are not happy campers. They've
True.
got something going on with them. And I'm not saying we all have to be therapists and try to heal them.
True.
I will avoid them and not engage. But I, I wish they'd get some help.
Yeah. True.
They
True.
need it.
True.
They need help.
True. 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 So you wrote books to kids and growing up adults. What about like adults? How they could be changed if it's not just a therapy session for them? Do you think like
Mhm.
any forms of art have this power of changing people's perspective?
Of course, every play, every film, every piece of art, music, if people are open and they're in the right frame of mind, they can shift just a little bit in their perspective. And maybe it's not a permanent shift, but it's a shift that happens in that moment. And it plants a little seed in their heart that things could be different from the way they are. And call that inspiration, or call it just a seed for thought. And when that happens, then maybe another seed a week from now or a year from now will plant itself next to that
Mm, mm,
original one, or
true.
something will happen. You'll meet someone who will reinforce what you've just been open to for the first time,
True.
and those
True.
things build on each other. and
True.
and I think that that's for me very, very, very powerful. It's interesting, sometimes when there is a particularly popular song and everybody says, I love that song. And I wonder, how can that be? I mean, because I think that as a species, we're all kind of tuned into each other in a way. And if something has universal appeal, that's pretty interesting
True.
to me.
True.
It's like
True.
everybody loves that movie, everybody loves that
Yeah.
book, everybody loves that song. That is powerful
Yeah.
creative magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think in the video game industry and even if you just name like the movies or video games, there are always like examples of this, like you mentioned, that there will be a game or a movie that will be appealing almost to everybody because like it really touch some topic that people can relate to and everyone can
Right.
relate to, right? So yeah,
And I don't think it's necessarily a conscious thought on the part of the creators. Oh, we know the formula. We know how to
yeah,
make a very
yeah,
popular
yeah.
game. I think it came from someone's heart,
True, true,
and they
true,
and they put it in a form that could
true,
be received by
true,
millions of people,
true,
and it's really from heart to heart. It's not like because then everything would be a hit if there was some
true,
kind of magic formula,
true,
and it's
true,
not
true,
the way it
true,
is. And if you talk to those people who managed to create something that was extraordinarily popular, they'll say, I just created the game I wanted to play,
true.
and obviously it turned out to be something that other people wanted as well.
Very
So
true, very true, very true,
create from the heart.
true. Were your family members and close friends, by the way, supportive about the decision that you started working on games? And also, this question goes to writing.
um you don't need support from everybody,
Okay,
and there will be people in your family who will say, how are you going to make any money doing that?
okay,
And it sounds mercenary, but if they're from an older generation, your parents or grandparents, and they're worried about your future, you have some kind of idealistic creative path you want to follow, and they go,
I
yeah,
see.
that's great, but how will you earn a
Mhm.
living? How will you pay your rent? And they're worried about you, even though it sounds like a put down. It sounds unsupportive. They're probably not a creative person themselves.
True,
But if you've got one person in your life who's important to you, who says, go for it, I really think that's all you need. And even if you don't have that person, inside, I hope that you are telling yourself that this is the right path.
true, true,
Because I think that there is so much creativity that never gets realized because we're
true,
afraid.
true, true,
And if fear keeps us from sharing our creative self with the world, with that potential, going back to the early part of this conversation, to change people for the better, then we're moving more slowly as a culture, as a
True.
species,
True.
than we might be if everybody said, okay, here's my contribution to moving forward.
True.
Here's
Very
my
true. Very
contribution.
true. Very true. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I feel like that's, like you said, is also very true. That's why the society is moving so slowly towards like being kind to each other and not hateful. Because like a
Yeah,
lot
I
of people
mean,
are so afraid to be creative and to give love. They
yeah.
rather give hate because like we discussed it before, like they have problems, so it's easier to for them to hate. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll take the devil's advocate position there. It's just yes, it feels like we're moving so slowly. Here it is, the 21st century, and we're still dealing with so many, very old kind of
True,
divisions
true,
between
true,
us. But on the other side of that, because of social media and the internet and our ability now to connect more quickly with ideas and with each other's, positive or negative, we have made incredible advances in connecting with
true,
each other,
true.
with sharing ideas and creative expression. If you somehow took a time machine back to the 1600s, with God knows why you'd want to do that, but if you did, you would say, wow, we have made a lot of progress. It seems slow for the people who are living in it, but just, I mean, in the United States, I was just reading an article. Um, about someone who was saying, yeah, the election was very, very disappointing for a lot of us. And yet she was saying, I am very grateful that we have been in battles for rights, for civil rights and personal rights before, and we have moved forward, and we have, and I think that's definitely true of many countries. So
True,
it's
true,
like,
true.
say even 100 years ago, this was not possible. People were treated this way. There were laws like that, and we have progressed. So I have to focus on the positive,
True.
knowing that as human beings we have the power to make our societies more inclusive and a more just place for everyone.
True.
And I think that is kind of part of what the creative process is about. Part of what people who create stories and games can be doing without getting too lofty, and never to sacrifice the actual story and entertainment part of it.
True.
That's the key.
True.
Make it
True.
fun and make it uplifting.
True. True. The thing, by the way, as a writer, that if there wouldn't be any like bad things happening around us, writers still would be able to like write good stories. So if there
Yes.
will be only good around us in the world, would it be interesting to write about it and to read about it? How do you feel about it?
Well, they say that there is no story without conflict. And
True.
so, even if you set your story in a utopia, there would probably, because human beings have different opinions and we want different things from people who are very close to us. So, how do we resolve these conflicts? And that would be interesting. So, even if the society itself seemed to be very nurturing and everything was positive, there was no violence and all this stuff, um, you could still throw in a thunderstorm or something that would make things harder for people. I mean, yeah, without conflict, there's no story. So yeah,
So
you'd
somehow
have to
we need
invent.
the negatives sometimes, right?
Yeah, or just the push and pull. You need the tension in a story. Otherwise, there's no motivation for resolution.
True.
And
True.
and if writers want to write for a resolution of some kind,
True.
that's what we do. It may
True.
be different in other. It's true for games too, right? There's an end point, right?
True. True.
Something you're striving for, a goal to be reached.
True, true, true. But you also have to appreciate the journey itself, right? So that's what a lot of people forget to do, in my opinion.
The journey,
Yeah,
right? Like right now, this conversation is part of your
true,
journey and my
true,
journey.
true, 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 true.
And if you're just saying, if you're looking at your watch and you're saying, okay, 15 more minutes to talk with Annie, and then I could,
There are a lot of
get
people like that, by the way. I know.
it.
Yeah,
But sometimes you see people like that. I mean, and it's like, okay, they're not into this, and okay, fine.
because
I've been interviewed by people who literally had like a list of questions to ask me, not saying that a list is bad, but they're not really listening to my answers.
Yeah.
They're not really responding. It's like a checklist.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to ask Annie this, this, and this. And I answer the question and they don't respond and they go right back. So it's not really a dialogue.
Yeah, because people
And
don't care. I feel like
they don't.
nowadays what's really like people lack of is like caring about each other. Not even just, caring by helping each other, but also like caring to listen to each other. And I
Oh,
think that
true.
that's the real problem when it comes to like the fact that people start to misunderstanding each other because they are not
Mhm.
even down to listen to the other person.
Yes. And listening, there's a difference between hearing and
True,
listening.
true, true, true,
And
true, true.
I have done many groups with students at schools, sometimes as many as 500 kids in a room. And I will ask an open ended question, and kids will raise their hand, which is great. But when someone else is talking, I don't want to see everybody's hand raised because, and I tell them this, I said, when she's talking and you've got your hand raised, what I'm seeing is that you're saying, I hope she shuts up quickly because I want to talk. So I'm not really listening. As soon as I tell them that that is the signal that they're not listening,
True,
that they've got their hand up when someone else is
true.
talking, they put their hand down. Listen, because she might be saying something
True,
that will help you
true,
with your journey.
true.
So listen, yeah, listening is really
True,
important.
true, true. And also exchanging like ideas and opinions. I remember myself in school, we was taught by exchanging opinions in a way that our teacher told us that we formed these two person groups, and each one of us had to like write down our own opinions about the topic, and then we had to like change the paper with our opinions
Ah,
and we had to read, and I still have that memory in myself because that's what
brilliant.
usually people do not do nowadays, right? So they just talk and they do not care about others opinions.
So what do you think that's about?
Like
Why
what
talk?
about?
Why talk? Yeah, why do people just want to talk and not say and not listen?
I
It's
feel
not really a
like
dialogue.
I feel like it's not about that they are mean. I was thinking a lot about it. I feel like it's more about like people are scared what will be if they will react to something. That's first. Also like people if they are, I feel like those people who are more the most quiet ones, probably they have like the best ideas mostly. I that's my experience at least. But they always like scared. It's like being scared in school to ask questions because you feel like you the teacher and the whole like class would think that you are dumb, right? And they rather not ask questions. And by this wrong like mentality, in my opinion, it's not a good mentality to have. They grow up to an adult form where they like cannot redo that mentality, or at least very hard, right? And I think that's
Right.
what really why I really resonate with your books that you have written to kids, because like I feel like you have to, as a person, even if you are an adult and you are having your own kids, or even if you are a teacher and teaching kids, or just talk to kids, you have to like educate them, but not like taking away their inner child. So not like you want them to grow up very fast, and realize everything about the society, but give them like these small hints about how to be kind, how to listen, like you told us. And I think that matters, and I think that that's what schools are lacking of. Also, like I think that a lot of parents are not doing a great job, in my opinion, by like giving this love and this kindness and this hints to their kids. And it's sad because like at the end of the day, it will be like a domino effect, which will lead these kids to grow up these empty human beings. Empty, I mean, by their soul, right? So yeah,
Yeah. I think the easiest way for parents to do that, teach that, is just to treat their children with respect
true,
and kindness and
true,
to listen to their children.
true,
It's
exactly,
like you ask the child's opinion
exactly,
and you very respectfully listen.
true,
You may not agree with the child. The child doesn't have to be the number one decision maker for the family,
true,
but take in what the child is saying and saying, that's a really good idea. Tell me more about that.
true.
It doesn't take a lot of time. And in that moment, the child gets a feeling my opinion is valuable.
True.
And that child will be less scared to share their opinion as an adult because they grew up in an environment where their opinion was valued.
Very true, very true. But it's again also like the ego play that people uh, like to have, right? Because like if they are not listening to their kids, in my opinion, it's really ego play that they think that they are above their kids, right? In some way, because they
It might
feel
be
like
that,
they are
or
more clever than the kid.
I think it may be that, or it may be that they are modeling the kind of parenting they received a
Yeah,
generation
yeah,
back.
that's
And
as well. Yeah,
so it's like, okay, when I become a parent, I will act like the parent I had. And the parent I had acted like the boss, never asked me what I thought about anything or how I felt,
true,
or in just kind of told me what to do. So I will be that parent because it's the only kind of parenting I know.
true,
So yeah,
true, 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 true.
where do we change? We change um, by exposing ourselves and our kids to the creativity of people outside of the family,
True.
who may have different ideas. And we can, parents can sit with a game with their child or with a story and learn on more than one level while they're reading the story.
Yeah.
And I like that.
It's interesting, by the way, this topic that we brought up together. I remember I saw a movie about like a father having like 3 or 4 sons. I cannot remember the name of the movie, but I think that Denzel Washington was the main actor in that movie.
He's
And
great.
yeah, and the movie was basically about some. The message of the movie was basically about that even how hard their sons tried to be different from their father, they ended up just being the same. And it really showed that even how hard you are trying to be like very different from your parents, you will still have those like core aspects or core pillars of your parents, even if you are trying to avoid that the whole life of yours, right? And it was a very nice touch to and a very nice message to consume. I
I'm
think.
gonna check out that movie. I'm sure I could find it. Just look up Denzel
Yeah,
Washington and see
yeah,
what he's
yeah,
in.
yeah. I will let you know. I'm very bad at like recalling names of titles, even if it's a movie or a game. But yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a very nice movie, in my opinion. Okay. How have you changed, by the way, as a person from being a person who was working on video games? And also, the question goes for writing. So, how have you changed by writing so many books in other territories of your own life?
Um, I don't know that I have changed as in become different.
Okay,
I think I've evolved.
I see.
Um, I'm I'm probably a much better listener than I was as a much younger person. I was always
I see.
full of ideas, um and because I always thought my ideas were really good. I probably wasn't listening as well as I could have to the ideas of friends of mine who were quieter.
I see.
That's probably it. I also think that I've become more compassionate as I create characters
I see.
that need to feel things in my stories. You dig deep, and if you're writing a scene that is powerful and emotional, you have to connect with memories of your own. And so for writing, I just feel like everything is more on the surface than it used to be.
I see.
I can access it more readily.
I see. I see.
And so when I'm talking to someone, I can read them more clearly, and I'm less reticent to ask them questions that will bring them
I see.
out,
I see.
because I want to learn about people. I'm more curious about other people
I see.
and willing to probe. Whereas before, I might have just said that was an interesting conversation. Um, Maybe I should have asked that person more about this. Now I'll just do it.
I see. I see.
And people like to talk about themselves, so
True.
it's easy.
True, 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 true. That's very true. Yeah, it's rare when people do not like to talk about themselves, right? So yeah,
Right.
yeah. You have spoken now about characters. Which character was your favorite to write in any of your books so far,
Cast of
and why?
thousands.
I know it's always easier to ask which character is favorite to write, right? So
Yeah. Okay. Well, in The Little Things That Kill,
okay,
and for your listeners, the subtitle makes me laugh. It made me laugh when I thought of the subtitle. It's called A Teen Friendship Afterlife Apology Tour. Um, there are three main characters, and I love each of these three girls. One of them is already dead, and you find that out on page one. So this is not a spoiler. And she wakes up and finds herself in an afterlife realm. And she has 30 days to figure out what happened to her because she has no memory. And if she doesn't figure it out in 30 days, because 30 days will be kind of an exam, it's called the evaluation, where you need to take responsibility for the choices you made in your life and move on. If she doesn't figure out the mystery of what happened to her in 30 days, she will not move on. Though they don't tell her exactly what moving on really means, and it's just kind of vague. But she has a vivid imagination, like I do, and she is imagining the worst. I mean, she's already dead, so what could be worse? But she's imagining the worst. You can't hurt me; I'm already dead. But so I feel for her. She's a very such a complex character. Um, and that's Nicole. And she has two surviving friends who she has to visit um, on Earth to figure out what happened. One of them is a witch with supernatural powers, very, very interesting. And that's what makes her kind of the odd girl out. She's not ashamed of the fact that she has rituals and things that she does. She doesn't try to hide it, but everybody in school thinks she's like super weird. And then the third girl is Cassie, and Cassie has a very tough exterior. She has a hard home life, and she makes everybody feel like she's a tough girl, but she's really very hurt and vulnerable underneath the armor. So each of these three girls is probably my favorite.
I
I
see.
can't choose between them because they're all multifaceted, and I went to different depths to write them, and so I care about them,
I see.
and yeah, so I'd say Nicole, Isabel, and Cassie are my favorite characters, and that's why.
I see. I see. I see. Do you think like each of them represents you in some way, or is one of them like more close to you than another, and some characters might represent others in your life? How do you feel about that?
Um, I think as a writer, you probably are some kind of a magnet or a sponge. You take in every bit of dialogue, every conversation, every interaction that you have,
I see.
and then you draw on it when you write. And so yeah, I have a deep and long memory. But I wouldn't say that any of these characters is more or less like me. They're probably all like me, probably every
I see.
single character. And there are 33 characters I know with speaking parts in this novel because we produced an audiobook and had to write out all of the characters for my narrator and tell a little bit about them. So I like I said at the beginning of this, Otto, I don't think it's possible to hold yourself back
True.
from your
True.
creations. You're
True.
going to spill into your creations
True. True. Very true.
in some way or another.
Very true. Very true. You also mentioned like the process of letting it go, even if it's like a loss or a bad memory. Uh, why do you think people nowadays, especially, tend to say that they let go their worst memories, but they still like hold on? Because me personally, I believe in this from all of my experiences talking to people that those ones who always tell others that they let go their deepest fears or loss of somebody they love, they never do that, right? In my opinion, like it's if you care about someone and you lose them, you will be never able to like let them go totally. But why do people, in your opinion, tend to like say that they let those people go? So
They
it's
want to
basically that they are lying to themselves, right? In my opinion. Why do people do that?
make themselves seem less vulnerable to others.
Okay.
It's a lie, I agree, but the idea of letting go, you let go in phases.
Okay.
To let go of a lost relationship doesn't necessarily mean you forget that you ever had it. It's not a
True, true,
delete
true,
button. It's not
true.
a delete button.
Yeah, but
It
people tend to
shouldn't.
do that. Like, for example, when people like take alcohol or drugs or the people hurt themselves, it's a form of like trying to escape those memories, in my opinion.
Trying, but
Trying.
you're gonna come down from the high,
True.
and it's the thing you were running away from is still there.
Yeah.
So what makes more sense to me, which is a more painful process, instead of keeping it at arm's length and
Letting
lying
it to
about it.
you, right?
Yeah. People say, I'm so over that. I'm over that. And they're very adamant about telling you how over it, and
True.
come on.
Yeah.
If you were truly over it, you wouldn't be screaming at me
True,
how over
true,
it you
true,
are.
true, true, true. Very true. Yeah.
But I think that what's a much healthier thing is to find out, typically it's something you have left uncommunicated,
True.
unsaid to that person. Okay.
True.
So in my novel, um, I have this young girl who is dead. And we also have her father, her single father, who is dealing with a lot of grief and guilt about her loss, the loss of her. Um, the idea of finding out what is left unsaid, and even if the person is gone, to create an imaginary conversation. If you could talk to that person, what is left unsaid? What would
True.
you like to say to them? To write a letter, and obviously you're not going to send it anywhere because the
True.
person is gone. But they could be gone in a lot of different ways. But I think the process of saying what you need to say in an empty room or on a piece of paper is therapeutic.
True.
In
True.
that way, you let go of part of what was there. And then you might find, to your delight, that the next time you think of that person, it hurts a little less.
True. True. True.
And little by little, you can take a look at what are the hooks? What's keeping me attached to this thing that whenever I think of it, it causes me pain and sadness.
True. True.
And
Very
I
true.
think that's a creative process. Whether you're drawing it out or writing it out, um, it's healthy.
True.
I think the people who are most stuck are the ones who are most aggressive. They have experienced loss. They haven't resolved it in any way at all. And they are still trying to blame other people for whatever happened to them. And that gives them some kind of a license to be aggressive and violent.
True.
They're not happy campers, like I said. And
True.
so you can't force someone, let it go already.
True. True. Very
That's
true.
not helpful.
Very true.
Instead, if you find yourself in a relationship with someone who has some sadness or anger or whatever that they're holding on to, you might just suggest, if you could talk to Bob, what would you say? Oh, I don't know. I would never want to talk. But yeah, I know. But if you could, what might you say to him? And just be quiet and listen. Again, back to listening. And that person just might open up just a little bit. And by letting that go a little bit, you've helped them.
True. Very true. Do you think, by the way, it's different, as you mentioned, like you would like to speak to that person who you lost? Do you think like the message would be different when you experienced it, and like for example, years after? So when
No, I
you
think
grow older, the message would be different by
I don't
experiences.
think so. I
Okay,
think that part of the stuckness is you're stuck in that moment from
I see.
20 years ago.
I see.
And it's the same, like, you cheated on me, or, you didn't trust me, or whatever it is. That's what you've been amplifying in your
I
mind
see.
over
I
the
see. I
decades.
see. I see. I see.
It's probably the same thing. That's
I
what you
see.
need to say.
I see. I see.
Or just, I'm sorry.
True.
That's what I need to say. And I never got to say it. I'm sorry.
True. 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 What was your, by the way, favorite story that you have written so far? I was wondering about that.
Um, Probably the new one that I'm working on
Okay.
that is coming out in March.
Okay.
I think your current work should always be your favorite work.
I
That's
see.
how you bring the most positive energy to it.
I see. I see.
And that's a science fiction, young adult science fiction novel.
I see.
Um, yeah, it's fun, it's funny, it's a road trip, and it's a an exploration of birth family versus found family
I see.
and
See.
what makes a family.
See. Do you think, by the way, that found family can give you the same love as original family? How do you feel about that?
Often much more,
Okay.
because when you find your found family, you're in a better place to ask for what you need. A child being born into a family, you're just like, well, I guess this is what all families are like. And you're not so introspective or aware. But as you grow up, and for whatever reason, you create separation from your birth family. Maybe they're not giving what you need. Maybe you've never asked for it, and it's just too hard to ask for it. But with your found family, it's like you choose them. You choose them because of a need you have and for what you're able to give to them. And it's a two-way street more than just, you have been assigned to this family, kid. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. So we were talking about the process of letting go, but how it does appeal to the projects when you like finish a project, like a book, for
That's a good.
example. How do you let it go? For example, for your books, is it
Well, for
hard or
me,
easy?
no, it's wonderful
Okay.
because you know you've done your best and you launch it into the world. It's kind of like a child, you know? You've done your best raising this child, and then you say bye, and they skip off and they go to their freshman year in college or wherever they're going next. And you know you've done your best to prepare them, and you're not changing the locks on your door so they can come back and visit. And yeah, it's time to think about the next project, because when you're working on a project, it takes up a lot of emotional and mental real estate in your mind. It's all you think about day and night, even when you're sleeping. First thing in the morning, last thing, and just always you're hiking, wherever you're doing, you're still thinking about that scene and how you can make it better. And then you finish it, and then you launch it, and people start reading it and reviewing it, and that's all wonderful. You've let it go. And because of the real estate that's now available, you think of your next project. And so, yeah, I mean, I could be talking about the little things that kill, but it's been 10 months since that book was published, and it almost feels old to me. 10 months. And in 9 months ago, I started working on my new book. So yeah, let it go, get another one. That's just me. Some people need a longer break. I'm going to take a year off where I'm not writing anything. That's not who I am.
I see. I see.
I'm already thinking of the third novel.
Okay.
I haven't. So yeah,
Nice.
and the second one's not published yet, and I have
I see.
more stuff to
I
do on
see.
it. But that's how it works.
Speaking of this topic that you already have like a plan for the third one, how do you balance not being influenced from one to each other, like the projects between, or you always have some influence from the first or the second book to the third one?
I don't have plans as in pre-planned, but I
Oh, okay.
find, yeah, it's like when the real estate opens up, something fills it.
I see. I see. I see.
It's like, oh, I have an idea. I say, hey, David, I've got an idea for another book. I don't know where it came from, but if it had been, floating around, it had no room to get into my head before, and then it does.
Yeah. Like we
I
discussed
don't
it
know.
before our interview that everything is happening for a reason, right? So
Yeah, I don't know how it is for other people, Otto. this is the only head I live in.
Yeah, I believe in that it works like that for me too. That sometimes it's just a click and it like comes to me and I write it down like writing machine. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
can relate
it's
to
like
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you just never know where inspiration is going to come from, where you get an idea from.
That's also the
Have you heard?
listening person in us, right? Because we always
Yeah,
listened to the words, to the people, and we had so much experiences. We weren't like closed down on the things that we see, and I think that also like comes back to the original thing of like staying a kid, even being an adult, because like kids are more open to listen, right, than adults, in my opinion, and that's how they grow as a person, as kids. And I think like if you secure this inner child in yourself and you're by that also not just being positive but also like you are willing to listen, that's how you will be able to like grow mentally and have these awesome stories, even if it's like about like sadness, if you experience sadness. So but it's still like an experience that you listen to and you consume, and it will be there for you to use in
I,
a
I,
creative way.
I agree with that. So the idea of staying open
True, true, true.
and flexible, I think makes you a creative person who puts forth interesting products
True,
because it's not all the same. You're growing and changing as a creator, and so your creations
true.
grow
It also
and change.
comes with honesty, right? Because you are willing to put your inner self into it, like we discussed it before. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
And to get real with whatever it is you're creating, get real with the characters, and to have them. I mean, it's like sometimes I will watch a film and I'm very tuned into dialogue. It's kind of one of my favorite things to write. It's like music. And if I'm watching something and the scene ends and I'm like, whoa, that just didn't they missed a mark. They went this level and they should have gone that level. But they cut out of the scene. Why? Because it was too uncomfortable for the writers. They didn't think the audience could accept that. I don't know, but it feels unsatisfactory
True,
for me as a consumer of that
true,
product. And
true,
so when I write, I like to get to the deepest level. It's like, yeah. And if that means that I'm crying while I'm writing, that's a good sign.
true. Very true, very true. Yeah.
Wow, that got real.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. You were
Oh
speaking
yeah.
of cutting out things when you see and realize that movies have some lines that probably were cut out. Have you ever had in your life that you were cutting out something from your stories that you have written because maybe
Oh,
you
you mean
did
like
not like it and you had to change those stories? So you
you
read
mean like
back and
editing?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You mean like editing,
yeah,
editing a
yeah.
real story? Well, I write fiction, so none of it's real.
True, 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 true,
It's
true.
all embellished at some level, and because I am not the characters, then I don't really need to edit out uncomfortable stuff.
I see.
In real life, sure, I've backed away from conversations. I've not said things that afterwards I go, damn, wish I'd said that to that person. Um, sure, I plenty of those. Less now than before, but yeah, I can think of those.
I see. I see. I see. What was your favorite experience, by the way, going back to games again,
Mhm.
about the video game industry? Like, what was your favorite part working on games? And which game
Um,
was your favorite one to work on? Let's talk about this.
well, I love the Putt Putt
Okay.
series, and that was really fun. But after that, Lori Bauman Arnold and she was my writing partner on Putt Putt and also on Sherlock Holmes. And then we did a series of from the books, the Madeline series of
Okay.
books. Those were super, super fun because they had a very big universe. One of them was Madeline's European Adventures. I think she went to like 3 or 4 European countries. And so doing the research and, creating those kinds of very location based adventures for her, that was very, very fun. But it's mostly for me character and dialogue. It's like, how do I make this little cartoon character moving through um, make the always knowing that the player will be controlling the character through the environment. How can I create pathways and crossroads for the character so that the player feels needed, that the story will not go forward unless the player makes a choice. And I'm definitely not above my character turning to the screen and saying, I don't know what I should do. What should we do here? You, the player, I need you. That kind of empowerment for the player or the child, the reader.
True.
There was a story, probably you know, it's called The Never Ending Story by Michael Ende,
Yeah.
German writer, fabulous, imaginative story where it's a story within a story within a story. And the idea that the characters do not advance unless the reader makes choices.
True.
And this is very intriguing to me. In fact, it's kind of part of the premise of this third novel that I'm kind of, yeah, the idea of
Okay.
a character with agency.
I see. I
I
see. I
like
see.
that.
I see. I do think, by the way, it's less educational games nowadays, similar form to those games that you also worked on.
The question is, why are there less educational games?
Yes. Yes,
What was
that's correct.
well, again, we have to think about what is education, and there are the soft skills and the hard skills. And this hard skills are the things that can be tested, and so you could see a child's progress on a scale of, you know, back at the beginning of the term, she was only reading at this level, and now she's reading at that level. So that's a hard skill. She's learned more vocabulary, more sight words. She's learned more about reading comprehension. I'm not so interested in that kind of educational stuff. I never have been.
I see.
Um, I'd like to think that those who create content for kids in the game realm are thinking about what what they are actually teaching, because they're teaching something.
True, true, true,
If
true.
it's
And I
if
wasn't
it's
saying like they are not teaching anything. It's just the form of teaching through games changed, in my opinion, right?
right. Well, I think that's a good thing because all the media that kids are exposed to is changing, and the expectation for what is entertainment for 21st century kids is different than what it was
I
when you
see.
were
I
growing
see. I
up.
see. I see. I see.
And so things have to be faster, and they're they have a greater capacity to take stuff in than we did. And so the pacing and all of the flash and stuff. David and I have two grandchildren. One is 10 and one is 6. And there I watch with them movies that they love, lyrics in songs that go a mile a minute, and they have memorized every single dance move and every single lyric. And it's like, okay, their brains are very elastic. And when we were learning things in an educational mode, things came to us much more slowly. And
True.
so, yeah, it can. I hope that the creators are still thinking of what's a positive experience I want to give the kids who consume my game, rather than just shoot the bad guys, um, but also to know what kids need to know and how you can help them as a creator. Again, don't entertainment's first, but there should be some kind of educational objective, because they're going to take something out of your game. And if it's only, shooting and killing, you might want to rethink that.
Very true. Very true. We have the Tolarin games, right? So, but it also can teach us moral things, in my opinion. So, if there is a moral story behind that, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it could be.
How has your perspective as a reader changed from being a writer for so many years?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've always been a very critical reader,
Okay.
but I think since I've been writing fiction seriously, I have very low tolerance for badly written fiction. Um, I will I will throw a book across the room if I feel like I've been manipulated in some way that I do not want to be manipulated in, or I've been set up and it wasn't a payoff. Um, if it feels like what I call lazy writing, forget it. I won't finish it. I just won't. So yeah, it's made me a more critical reader.
I see.
Absolutely.
I see.
Mhm.
I see. So, when it comes to the message of a book, do you believe that readers can connect with the writer hands to hand and understand the exact same message that they wanted to give?
No, because when you consume any kind of art, you're bringing your own experiences,
Okay.
your own life
Okay.
experiences, so individualistic. And so I know what the little things that kill meant to me. I know what my intention was, excuse me, as I
It's okay.
created those characters, but I can't suppose what other people are going to get from it. And when you read reviews of your own work, I am I'm often surprised. Not that what they got out of it wasn't in there, but it was like, wow, they got that? That was like level 17 and that was the number one thing they got. So that's intriguing to me. So that's kind of like the book takes on a life of its own. And when it takes on a life of its own, then the audience determines what each one of them is going to get from it. And that's pretty cool, really.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
not like I'm painting a stop sign. My piece of work is a stop sign. And it's got a red background and black letters, STOP or whatever. And it's not a lot of interpretation in there. What did you get out of Annie's stop sign? I got STOP, stop. Uh-huh. Was there anything else you got from it? No, that was pretty much it. Um, but when you create a novel, with all these characters and these scenes and these themes and these nuances that I put in, and then what the reader is bringing from their life experience, and what made them cry and what made them laugh, and other people don't feel that way, and it's like, wow, okay, it's humbling. It's really humbling. It's like
Sure.
you built this thing and you let it go, and other people say that is definitely that, and someone says, well, maybe for you, but for me that is definitely this. Okay, I just the creator, I let it go. Oh, just letting it go.
It's interesting because on some point I agree with you, but on some point from at least my experiences I a bit disagree, because from my experiences what I've seen, and I remember myself like having an argument with my literature teacher in Hungarian lessons classes in school. She always told me that you as a reader never will understand the author what he had as a message in the poem, because like he had a life that he lived and an experience, and you wouldn't able to connect with him on the 100% level with the same story that he had. And in my opinion it's not always the case. Like I feel like there are some rare occasions, rare memories where like it's not even that you are connecting. So first of all, it can happen that somebody is having very similar past like a reader and also like a writer, right? So they can connect, in my opinion at least, hands to hand. But also I feel like even if you have never had the same experience but just similar one, in my opinion, from my experiences, what I've seen on people reading books and consuming forms of art, I feel like it's, like I said, it's very rare, but people can connect with each other by similar stories and on a higher emotional level. Because like for example, if like let's say it's a love story and people like the reader was writing the love story because he had to let it go, some person that he loved or she loved, then
Mhm.
probably those ones who like are happy in their relationship, they probably of course wouldn't get it, the message that he wanted to give. But in my opinion there will be like very rare occasions, like I said before, when a person as a reader will like totally understand what not the message, but what the actual author or writer was going through. And I think that, in my opinion, that's the most beautiful part in art, at least in my opinion, like I said. And I experienced that too, because like it's very interesting that I had conversations with some writers, like I remember at university, and I wrote them a review about their book, and they were like, how did you know what happened to me? Because it wasn't written in the book. And I was like, I felt it. And that's how I realized that it's very rare, but it can really happen. Like I said, it's rare. And I think that it's again by being very open-minded to not just to listen or read what you read, of course, because it's not listening but reading if it's a book, but also like being very open-minded and listening on an emotional level. And I think that that's why I feel like I said, it's on one hand I agree with you, but on one hand, like I feel like there are some rare occasions to this topic.
I
Again,
think
at least from my
writing,
experience.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that even if you could say, I had the same experience, you processed it in a different way.
True,
Your
true, true, very
context
true,
was,
very true. Yeah, very true, very
and
true.
so the best that I can do as a writer is create three-dimensional characters, know them very, very well,
True,
know what what I'm putting them through, and create the most realistic responses I can
true,
for each of these characters in in the situation that I created for them, and
true,
have them resolve it also in realistic ways. Sometimes I think people want um, to shortcut things, and so
true.
the realization that the character gets that makes things all better happens so fast. You go, wait a minute, wait a minute. I don't buy this because look how upset she was. Look how lost he felt. Now all of a sudden it's gone. That's not real.
True, true,
It
true.
takes human beings a while to resolve stuff to get them from point A
Or
to
it's
point
just a
B.
mask on them in real life, right? That they tend to be happier than they are.
Right. I think that's very true.
Yeah,
So I don't need to shortcut things. I mean, you can make a novel as long as you want, right?
true,
So if it takes time, yeah, I'm saying you need to write every heartbeat of the character, but at least the points that illustrate for the reader that something real happened, and as a result, the character changed just a little bit, just a little tiny bit of a turn in this direction
true,
or in this direction, which will explain why in the next scene they are changed a little bit. The worst thing, right, is to read a book where the character starts off like this and the whole story goes by, and 350 pages later, they're still kind of the same person. It's like, okay,
true, true,
really
true,
not interesting.
true, very true, very true. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to, by the way, going back to the topic of games, would you like to work on games again, or do you think like by writing books you found yourself
Um,
in life?
uh,
And that's
yeah,
what you always wanted to do.
I think games. I'm not a game player. I've never been a game player. Um, the games that I wrote and loved working on were stories, as far as I'm concerned. They were stories on a screen, and they had that added thing of interactivity, which creating a nonlinear storyline was fascinating and a great workout for my brain. Um, but what I like about writing fiction is that I don't need a team of people to write when I do it. Now
I
I know
see.
there are people who create games and they do everything.
True, true, true,
But I also know, living with David, what a game like Return to Monkey Island took in terms of a team behind it. I
true.
mean, a lot of people. And so I think ultimately what I like about what I do now is that it's just me and my computer and my mind, and I can spend as much time as I want getting this novel in the shape that I feel like it's ready to give to my editor. and I don't need a whole team of people. I
I
think
see.
ultimately I'm a solo act. I'm much more of an introvert than people who work in collaborative arts
I see.
are. I'm
I
not
see.
really a team player, though I have to say, with indie publishing, you need a team. You need the cover designer. You need the editor. You
True.
need the audiobook narrator, and you need the the producer, the copywriters for the back cover, and you need the marketing team. And we have all that now, and that's great. But for me, as the first creator of it, it's just me in my room here, and working on the thing. So
I
no, I
see.
don't think I'm going back to games.
I see. I see. I see. I see. So about your future books, my question would be again back to books. Uh, do you think like, or do you feel like those three books that you mentioned that you wrote so far and the other two that you are planning to launch, they are
Oh,
of the same
I've written
universe?
I've written 13 books.
Yeah, I know, but these three that you talked about, are they in the same universe?
Oh no, there.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing about me. I don't usually read
Oh,
sequels,
okay. 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 Okay.
and I had no interest in creating a sequel to
Okay.
The Little Things We Kill.
I see. I see.
Um, I like to give myself completely different creative challenges.
I see.
Um, I I'm like that in the art that I produce. If you came into my studio here and you'd say you did all of this, it looks like eight different people painted these, and that's because I like I like change. I mean, I like changing some things. David and I have been married for 50 years, literally 50 years. So some things I don't like to change. But but when it comes to my creative challenges, it's like I've done that. I know that I can do that. Now it's time to push myself to do something I'm not so familiar with. I'm
I see.
taking an abstract painting class right now for the first time. And with abstract, it's like, hey, just let yourself go. It's the opposite of trying to edit a paragraph and making it perfect. Abstract art, there is no perfect. It's not supposed to look like anything except what you decide you want on the canvas. So that intrigues me. So to answer the question simply, no, there's no connection in the
I
universes.
see. I see. Have you always, by the way, had this mindset of yours that you wanted to challenge yourself in a creative way?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
which is probably part of the reason why I'm still very productive,
I see. I see.
because I don't let myself get bored. Sometimes you see artists who cash in on a certain style of painting, and they just keep painting the same thing over and over. It's like,
True. True.
not
True.
for me, not for me.
True. True. When have you discovered, by the way, your writing style throughout your life?
I don't think you discover writing style.
Okay.
I think you,
Interesting answer. Okay.
I think you do what you do, and um, there are parts of it that you lean into more and you
Okay.
get better at it,
Okay.
and they say, oh, write with your own voice. What is your voice? And that I tend to just like create characters that feel very distinct. And okay, so I've done acting. Okay, and I'm creating characters that are someone else's creation out of a script to be on a stage play. I've also done improv, and improv is like free form. So I think I lean into that when I create
I
characters,
see.
and it's like a muscle, and you get good at it, and you feel confident. I think confidence is probably the number one creative driving force. As back at the beginning of this conversation, we talk about people who are afraid to engage in creative expression because they don't want to be judged, or they don't want to embarrass themselves, or whatever. But I think that if you have the confidence, you say, yeah, I'll try that. I'll try out that character. I'll try out that style of writing. Um, in my new novel, it's science fiction, so part of it takes place on another planet. So now we're talking about world building. And my editor, she pointed out something that I had written, and she said, "This is great physical description. This places the reader in this world. Give me more of that." So I go, okay. Maybe before I was just like shorthanding it. Now she's saying she wants more detail along the physical place because it's another planet. Um, and so giving myself the challenge, can I write a fully formed description of another planet in the same way that I would describe this room that I spend many
I see.
hours a
I
day?
see. I see. I see. I see.
That's writing in 3 dimensions. And so at first it feels a little bit awkward. And then you do it some more, you go, yeah, I can do that.
I
So
see.
it's
I
like
see. You have been speaking of self-confidence. Is it something that you always had in your life from a very young age, or is it something that developed out through the years of writing?
that. That's a very interesting question. And I think there's some things called inborn temperament.
Okay.
Has to be with being an outgoing person, someone who's confident, someone who's optimistic.
I
I've
see.
always been that.
I see. I see.
Um, um, when you end up in what we call junior high or middle school, that tends to get beaten out of you by your peers because everyone is in such an self-confident place
True.
that they're judging everybody,
Yeah.
and
Sadly, I would
it's
say.
it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I probably lost a lot of that at that point, but I've always had creative expression to make me feel like, okay, so I'm not getting the boyfriend I want, or this popular girls are maybe not inviting me to this party or whatever, but I know I can sing, and I know that I can write and draw. So there are trade-offs, and so then you get older and you go to college and you meet more of your people, and so you get more confident about that stuff, and you still have the creative stuff. And so I'd say um it ebbs and flows. I've had a lot of rejection from literary agents that I was trying to get an earlier novel
I see.
um placed with, and that can be very debilitating.
I see.
Um, but ultimately, if you persist and push through it, and now you need to have a certain level of confidence, because if somebody's saying, no, we're not interested, and you get that, dozens of times, you need to have a certain level of self confidence to immune yourself
True.
to
True.
that.
True.
Otherwise, you're going to go, I guess, I guess this work sucks and I should stop trying.
True.
A lot of
That's true.
people fall into that
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Sadly.
for whatever reason, I had enough self-confidence to say, "Screw them. I'm I'm going to publish this independently. I know it's a good story."
True.
So they were wrong.
True. True.
I don't know. But it's hard, isn't it, Otto, when you put yourself up for approval
True.
or acceptance and you don't get it, whether it's on a social
True.
level
True.
or
Very true.
professional level.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to keep your chin up and saying,
True.
I'm going to continue.
Yeah, because
It's hard.
you're trying to have this expectation of being able to like create something and publish, like you said, like your books. And if there is a rejection, you will feel like you are not enough for the people or for the publisher. Or yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's sad, and it's very hard in my opinion. And like you said, it's very true also that a lot of people deals with this situation where like they getting so many rejections that they start to like overthink everything and like question themselves even more.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing that the person who was sitting there making the judgment call might have spent 10 seconds with your email.
True, true, true. Yeah, that happens a lot
You
to
have
people. Yeah.
200 other emails they have to go through
That's
before
again listening,
lunchtime.
right? That we discussed just earlier. Yeah.
Right. And they're just saying, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And you're one of the no's. And And for you, you thought, oh, they read the book and they hated it. It probably wasn't like that at all.
True.
They got 3 sentences in and they said,
True.
not for me.
True. That's why I don't respect if people are like judging something by not even like consuming the whole product, even if or forms of
Right.
art,
Right.
because like it's
Uh-huh.
you're not like realizing the whole process that was put
Yeah.
into there and the work and the honesty and everything. Yeah.
So now when people say, wow, I've got this book, I'm trying to get a literary agent. I said, okay, how many agents have you reached out to? Well, only 20 so far. And what's been the response? Well, either I never hear back from them again or they send me some form letter and I know they didn't read it. I said, okay, do you still believe in your story? Yeah, I do. I said, you might want to consider independent publishing because you could wait forever
True.
for
True.
one of these people in an office
True.
somewhere
True.
to say yes.
They might not
And
even be
then,
into reading, right? They are just sitting there and
right, right.
deciding for others.
And they're deciding for others, they're deciding on a marketplace
True.
and a formula. It's easier for them to keep their job if they say no than if
Exactly.
they say yes to something and it doesn't make a ton of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Who said yes to this? You're fired.
Very true, very true, very true.
So do it yourself. It's easier now than it has ever been. You don't need to go the traditional publishing route.
I see, I see. What would be your advice, by the way, speaking of this topic, to those who would like to follow their dreams and be a writer?
Do it.
Okay.
What do you need to be a writer? You need a piece of paper and a pencil.
Okay.
You got a story? Write it. And that's the first step. You've got to write it. You can't just, I mean, I have so many people ought to say to me, oh, I wish I was a writer. Wow, you've written a book. I wish you're a writer. I said, so what's keeping you from being a writer? I mean, I don't mean to be supercilious about this, but like, what is preventing you
True, true, true.
from being a writer? Someone else is giving you permission?
Yeah.
And so how much do you really want it? And that's another question. It's like
True,
when someone
true,
says, I wish I was fill in the blank.
true,
How much do you really wish it?
true, true,
How much
true,
of a priority is it? How much time do you make? Because most of the stuff we're talking about is a craft,
true.
a skill that you get better at. But if you're not making any time to get better at it, then you may be lying to yourself on some level about how
Exactly,
much you really.
exactly. I've seen a lot of people like that in my life, especially friends who like wanted to, for example, make music, compose music, but they never
Mhm.
really started it, and the drive was really not because they loved like the idea of making music, but they saw someone very famous making music, and that's what how they ended up like being this having this influence by famous person. And it's not the same like you would like to share your story than just being influenced by a famous person, right?
Right. We had someone over for Thanksgiving last night, and on a side conversation, he and David, he asked, and I wasn't there. Um, he asked David, "Why does Annie write? Why does she write? Is it because she wants to make money?" And David said, "No. Um, she writes because she has a story to tell, and because she is a writer." And what he meant by that was that she's compelled to write.
True.
It's like if you bake or if you're a hiker or if you love to travel. I'm a photographer. This is what I do. This is who I am. It's how I express myself. I don't have a choice.
True. True.
I write. That's why I write. I write because I'm a writer.
True.
And interesting because I think this person has aspirations to be a musician, but he doesn't prioritize it enough.
I
So
see.
when you ask him about it, he'll say, "Yeah, I really should be spending more time making music."
Yeah, that's why I always say
Okay.
that people always like judge others or tend to judge others by their own lack of confidence, right, to do something.
Exactly.
So they probably
Exactly.
asked your husband about it because they weren't enough self-confident to
But
pursue
he
their
wants some like
dreams.
he wanted some kind of like secret answer,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
why does Annie write?
yeah,
And so I said to David, that was great. You got it. Because if he had asked me, I would have said the exact same thing.
yeah,
There's no secret thing.
yeah, yeah. That's again the angry kids in adult form, of like, having this judgment on others because he or she cannot do something as a kid,
Yeah, and sometimes it's anger and
jealousy
jealousy.
again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or sometimes it's just bewilderment. I don't understand how she can do this. Tell me the secret and I will apply it
Yeah,
to
but
my
wouldn't it
own
be
act.
easier to ask this rather than be like judgmental?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so
But people create all kinds of excuses of why they're not doing what they say they
true,
want to
true,
do.
true, true, very true,
I don't really understand that,
true.
except, stop lying about it. Maybe you really don't want to do it.
Yeah,
That would be very liberating. You know what? I've been telling myself for years I really wanted to learn to skydive. No, no. And I said, wow, I really wish I could learn to skydive. I want to really jump out of an airplane. That's what I want to do. Um, and someone says, if you really wanted to take skydiving lessons, you'd probably do it. And I go, you're right. You know what? Here's a secret, Otto. I really do not want to learn how to jump out of a plane. It's like, it's so much better. I don't have to lie about it anymore.
very true, very true. Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
somebody listening will relieve themselves of any guilt about something they say they wanted to do.
Very true, very true, very true, very true, very true,
Life's too short.
true, true,
Have
true,
fun.
true, very true. You mentioned challenging yourself. What other forms of art would you like to challenge yourself that you haven't done it yet before?
Well, see, I used to sing really well,
Okay,
but it's not something I'm going back to
okay.
because as you age, your voice changes. My voice changed. I used to be a soprano. So that chapter's over. That's not a challenge. Um, the painting, visual arts is really, uh, I think it's limitless the way you can express yourself in color and form and shadow and perspective and stuff. So yeah, I will definitely continue doing that. I started painting seriously during COVID, and I've continued doing that. I could see how that evolves. That's another thing. It's when you pick up a new challenge and you stay with it, you get to see your progress, and that's very it's motivating for me. Um, Other creative things, I mean, I'm doing what I want to do. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm fortunate in that I am in a situation where I can choose what I want to do with my time,
Let's see.
and I know that is very rare,
True, true, true.
and I never take it for granted. And so I like to just do what makes me feel fulfilled at the end of each day. At the end of the day, I could say, "Wow, this was a full day. I did this, this, and this." Instead of just I dreamed about doing this, but I didn't do it. So I like to. I'm very productive, and that suits me well.
Let's see. Let's see. Can you imagine yourself, by the way, combining different creative works, like for example, painting and also writing into one form,
Yeah,
for example?
I have thought about that. I have played around with the idea of writing and illustrating
I see.
children's books,
I see.
but the kind of writing that gives you the most fulfillment is novels, and they don't tend to be illustrated, nor do they need
True,
illustration.
true, true, true.
So yeah, I have played around with that. I can, yeah, I'll show you this. I'll show you this.
Nice, nice, nice,
This
nice.
is this is one of the three little pigs.
Lovely, lovely,
Um,
lovely, lovely, lovely. Nice.
Yeah. Um, I had an idea for one of those crazy composite stories where the three little pigs meet the big bad wolf, meet Little Red Riding Hood, and I forget who the third character was, but they all meet in the woods and their stories overlap. And so
Nice.
I started creating the pigs.
I see.
Um, but that was before I realized I really needed to finish the little things that kill. And once I did that, I stopped illustrating it. Come on, Annie. This is fun, but you really need to finish the story. That was me telling myself in the end. I'm so glad that I did.
I see, I see, I see. When you have these times when like you are aware that you are making a project, but you still like have these little side projects, how do you balance not being influenced from those side projects to the main project?
Um, well, I always know what the main project
I
is,
see, I
and
see.
since David and I are the publishers of the little things of the new novel, we know what our deadlines are. We're having a cover reveal starting on the 1st of December, which is a couple of days.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
So, it's like gearing up. It's it's like, okay, that's the main project. Is there anything that I need to do today on that? If not, then I'll shift
I
to
see,
something that is less pressing but
I see,
fun,
I see.
like, painting. I will do that. I also like to bake, which I think is a creative thing too.
True, true, very true, very true, very true.
And hike and take photographs.
Nice. I appreciate, by the
So
way,
yeah,
that you are so open-minded about being creative. I appreciate
creativity is what fuels me. I mean, it's like people say, "How do you find time to be creative?" It's like,
that.
hey,
You
what
give
what
them
is your
all the
life?
advice, right?
What is your life like if you're not creating something? And
True,
it
true,
don't
true,
necessarily need a product to sell. It's
true,
just I have a lot to express, and I think of creativity as a way to express what I do.
true.
I still play the piano. I've got one downstairs, and yeah, it's like I have to do this. I don't know. Maybe I'd be a miserable person if I just sat around thinking about ways I could express myself
True,
instead of
true, true,
actually
true,
expressing myself.
true. And we also talked about it that it's a therapy to the people who are being creative, right? So they are trying to
Yeah, it's for
understand
me.
themselves and also like have relief if they have,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you read The Little Things That Kill, and it's very therapeutic
True,
to write something like that.
true, 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 true. And it also happens like we also discussed it, like in the exact time when you need it, right? So it's also interesting that those who are creative people, I can relate to that topic that we discussed before our interview some days ago, that I feel like it's really when you are being creative, it always like a click in your head, right? And you have to do it. Not just like you said, not because like some people, for example, do it for just releasing it or the end goal, but for the journey and for the therapy and for because you have this feeling to push it towards, right? And to have it
Yes,
out
you
from
have a
you.
feeling. I didn't feel like I could quit on Nicole and her two friends. I felt like I owed it to them to bring their story to life.
True, 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 very true, very true. We touched here a lot of topics, by the way. Before I ask some more questions, and I also read some questions from the chat if there are some questions. Is there anything that you would like to add, or we haven't touched as a topic and you would like to talk
We
about?
talked about a lot.
True,
I
true, 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 true.
no, I'd be happy to answer any question.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's look in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know. Let us know if there is any question. Oh, okay. There is a question. I will translate it for you. It's from Minnie. She read the description of your book, and she would like to ask you that how do you think of like these spiritual things in life? How do you? What's your viewpoints on these spiritual things in life? Uh, and also how real do you think the two world exists, like the real world and like the other world?
Thank you for the question, Minnie. That's very thoughtful. I I feel that this my perspective on spirituality is just like there's an unseen world, and
Okay,
there's things that we cannot explain. And because I'm a writer, I like to fill in blanks. I like to speculate. And I personally believe that, believe in karma, that
Okay,
idea that what goes around comes around,
okay,
and it may not be in an immediate sense.
I see.
If you do a kindness, that you get paid back in kindness. If you are thoughtless, it'll come back. But I do believe in the ripple effect in life,
I see.
and so it pays to be kind. I don't think you ever regret being kind,
True, true,
even if
true,
it
true,
may not be received in the way that you intended. You did the right thing,
true.
and so the novel is really about the choices that we make, um, the intentional choices that we make, and the unintentional choices, and the aftermath of those. Um, could you please read the first part of her question again? If could you
Oh
access
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 sure. So she read the description of your book, and she would like to ask that how do you think about the spiritual things and
Mhm.
words, and
Okay.
how real? Yeah. So you answered the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, I answered the second one first. So I live my life kind of in a way that is here and now, but always thinking about, well, that's an interesting coincidence. And are there such things as coincidences?
Same,
Like,
same.
for example, if I'm walking along, and this is a simple thing, take a route that I normally wouldn't, a little side street, and run into some friends that I haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, I can
It's
relate to
like,
that. Yeah,
okay. So it's like, oh, I guess I was supposed to
be
take
there.
that side route. Is that a spiritual thing? It's a belief. Yeah. There's that something is operating on another level.
True,
I'm being guided
true,
um on another level. And I don't know, maybe that's comforting to me. I think it's cool. I think it's kind of magical,
true,
and I like to
true, true,
go with stuff like that.
true.
And you just never know. So it has to do with being open. And I hope you read the book, Minnie, because there's a character in it, Isabel, who is a witch, but a very good witch. And she has undeniable psychic powers. And she probably, on one end of the extreme, leans into that intuitive, just go with it thing, where Cassie on the other end doesn't trust anything. And she's holding on to the physical world as tightly as she can for support. So I don't know. I think it kind of reflects two ends of a spectrum, and I'm probably closer to the Isabel end, but
I see.
not as woo woo as she is. There's something about her that is endearing, but I don't know that she's not very practical. And I think to get stuff done like I do, to be productive, you need to be practical. You
True,
need to
true,
say,
true,
okay, here's a deadline. You need to get it done. These are the steps that need
true,
to happen before the audiobook is finished,
true,
that kind of stuff. So it's a balance. And I think that's something that my characters learn, that it's a balance. It's the choices we make, but it has to do with listening to the needs of other people, as you and I were talking about, and listening to your own heart.
true, true, true. It's also very interesting that there are, for example, for myself, I experienced these rare occasions similar to yours where I met people just because I take down the road to the, for example, to the
Yeah, and what
city
do you think in
center.
that?
It's
What do you
scary. It's
think?
scary and interesting at the same time. It's scary and interesting.
Um,
Like I remember myself when I like went on a way other route to the university at my university times, and I met like my school teacher, and also after that going back home on again
mhm.
a different route, I met like high school classmate of mine. It was so weird, right? Because he wasn't even living there, so it was like living very far away from the main city center. Yeah, and it was very weird. Like I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird feeling, and but it's also a comfortable feeling because you feel like there is more to explore, right? So it's not
Yes, and
just
I
the
think
real world that you see with your own eyes, but there is something more, and you start to think
right.
about it, what it could be, and you start constantly think about it, and it's yeah, it's
Okay, so that's my idea of spirituality. It's the
true,
unseen world.
true,
It's the
true,
way that we don't have
true,
explanations. And or when you've just been thinking about someone and you haven't thought about them for a long time
And they
and they
start to,
text you.
yeah, yeah, and call you. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
"Oh, I was just thinking about you."
yeah.
Or when it happens in both directions.
True,
But they
true,
say, "I was just thinking about you." And it's like, "No, I was just thinking about you." And there's the text.
true, true, true,
I
true,
love stuff like that.
true, true. True. There is also like a deeper level of it. I believe that, for example, cats and kids see ghosts as well. I've seen some examples to that. Like I remember some
Hmm,
of, for example, when I was a kid,
hmm.
my good friends also like started like to act in this way where like they saw their grandparents like ghosts and they started talking with them, and it was a very scary situation, by the way. But now growing up, I realized that I think that it was real. I know it's very
Mhm.
feels very like weird to say, but I still believe in it, because like I feel like what differs from kids and to adults is that like kids mind is more opened up of experiencing everything in the world, not just what they see. And because of that, like, so there is no shield in their mind which adults have, right? Because we as adults, we grow up and we realize everything that we consumed as kids, and we start to make this little box in our head with all the knowledge that we grow up with, right? But as kids, we are not having that knowledge, so we are pressed with our start button to consume all the knowledge, right? So we are basically not, how to say it in the right way, like not having this, box in our head, but just we are consuming everything to that box, which will like end up being a closed box by growing up. And I feel like that's why kids are being able to like, see something that we adults do not see, at least in
They
my
say
opinion.
some things have to be believed to be seen.
True, true. Or that, yeah. 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 Very true. Very true. Very true. Okay, there is also again a new question from Alma. Um okay. Alma is asking, by the way, it's Apple in English, Alma. So he's asking, what was the story that touched you the most when you read it? Or you loved it the most in your life? Again, a hard
I have a
question.
lot. I have a
Picking
lot of.
favorites, right?
I have a lot of favorite books. Um, there, the book that comes to mind is the novel Wicked
Okay,
by Gregory Maguire.
okay,
It became a stage musical, and it's now a movie that just came out last week.
I see.
And it is a profound exploration of good and evil.
I see.
And it's a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, where you have the good witch and the wicked witch, and all is not what it seems to be. So, thank you for that question. It's hard because I've got lots of favorite books that I did not throw across the room. um, but I think Wicked by Gregory Maguire is one of the books that's definitely stayed with me
I see.
because I thought it was a incredible world building, but also this deep moral exploration of good and evil.
I see.
And things are turned on their head from a story that you've grown up with. And what does it mean to be good, and what does it mean to be wicked? And it's also about what happens when people's perception of someone becomes so strong that it moves away completely from who they really are, and it becomes, well, we all know who you really are and they really don't.
True, true, true.
And this was written before social media, but I think there's a lot to be said about the lies that we consume
True, very true.
about other people, and why we're no longer listening to each other as well as we could because we think we know what people are like because, hey, social media says so, like that.
Yeah, very true, very true, very true. By the way, what do you think about the topic? If there is a form of art and it's appealing to people, but for example, the person who made it wasn't like a very good person.
Oh,
What
yeah.
do you think like the art piece should be like downscaled because of that? Because I feel like it's not fair, right? That people are
You think it's not
downscaling, and
fair?
it happens nowadays especially a lot, that there is a
Mhm.
very like bad person who made like a
Mhm.
very beautiful piece of art, and they people start to downscale it, realizing that the person was very bad. But in my opinion, it's not fair, because like the art still is a very nice thing to consume, right? And if, in my opinion as well, like if the person was to send his very good message, there is probably something good in that person as well, right? So in my opinion, at least, that's how I
Okay,
believe.
I'll answer the question. I've thought about this a lot. When you hear about a filmmaker whose films you loved, and then you find out something despicable about their
True.
character in real life, it's like, I don't think I'm gonna go to any of those movies anymore. Um, I well, this goes back to, you can't filter out the person that you are from the art that you create. So I'm wondering, well, okay, on the very least, I don't want to put more money in their pocket. I don't want to support this person, because you cannot unknow what you know about the person now, right?
True.
Okay. But can I unlove the earlier work that I appreciated before I knew this thing about them? No, I probably can't. Does it make me wonder if they were engaging in that despicable behavior while they were also creating this work? Yeah, it does make me wonder. Do I love the work less? I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer for that. It feels really complicated for me. I know that I can't unknow what I know. And even if I come to that knowledge late, now I know it. And I don't want to support that person anymore.
I see.
It's like, um, Elon Musk, for example. Yeah, we thought that the Tesla was an amazing car. We never bought one, but we have an electric car. We've had one, for a hybrid for like 20 years. When we were looking at getting the next upgrade, um, there was no way we were going to buy a Tesla, because we have David and I have like zero respect for anything that has to do with Elon Musk. I think he's a racist. I think he's a fascist. Whatever. Um, so there's that. Does that make the car less good? Probably not, but I don't want to support him with,
Yeah, I
my
understand your
hard-earned.
points. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's complicated,
True, true,
especially
very
when
true.
you're talking about art rather than a machine.
True, true, very true. Yeah, yeah. And like I said,
I know you.
if it's art, if a piece of art, I still feel like there is something, or at least my naive inner kid, inner child thinks that, or wants to think that there should be like something good in a person as well, right? If he did something very positive with his art, or very touching with his art, because like we discussed it before, you can't lie when you're doing any form of art, right? So it will be you in the art in some way.
Yeah, I don't know, sweetie.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you. Okay, any more questions, by the way, from the chat? Any more questions?
Ask me anything.
Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Any? Ugh. I started to like combine the two languages, English and Hungarian.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Any more questions? Bármilyen más kérdés? Let us know. 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 We touched, by the way, here a lot of topics, and we touched the topic of kindness a lot of times. Do you think like our words will be able to change for the better, by the way, because it's like a overall topic around every topic that we touched? Do you have hope for humanity as a
Oh
creator
yeah,
and
I'm
also a
very,
person? Yeah.
I'm I'm an optimist. I'm an
Okay.
idealist. It's keeps me going. I am always hopeful
I see.
because people have the capacity to learn and grow, which is something that comes out of my novel. They always say,
True,
learn and progress.
true, 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 true,
I definitely believe in learn and progress.
true,
So, we may not, some of us are learning, we're all learning at different rates.
true, true.
And I know a story about um, a kid walking along the shoreline of an ocean, and all these starfish it got swept up in a storm, and then the ocean receded, and the starfish were on the sand. They were landlocked, and the kid picked up a starfish and tossed it back into the ocean. And there was an adult with them and said, kid, you can't save all those starfish. And the kid said, but I can save this one. And so I
True,
really like that idea that you don't have to change the whole world.
true,
You
true,
change one person by something you say
true,
or a kind act, an anonymous donation,
true,
something that you've created,
true,
then progress.
true, very true. And hopefully the parents will step next to the child and also throw back one, right? So
I would
hopefully,
hope so.
yeah,
Yeah, let me help you save this one.
true, true, true. Hopefully that will happen to each of the parents and kids. Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
even
you.
just by telling the story,
True.
it gives you an awareness that I don't have to do all of it,
True.
but
True.
I can do something.
True.
And we should always be trying to do something.
True. 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 And also, it's very true in my opinion, like you said it before, that even if people who are consuming any form of art, even if it's like a book or a video game or a movie or music, they might not understand the message and connect with it and like change for the better for the first time they consume that piece of art, but they might realize that message that they consumed from that piece of art later when they experience something close to that topic, right?
Yes, I believe that. We're all planting seeds. That's what
True,
we're
true, true,
doing. And
true,
I also think that everything that we consume stays with us on some level.
true,
So you may not be ready to unwrap it right now, but at some point in the future, something will spark and you'll go, oh, I remember that. I remember that novel. Yeah, was it about some girl who's trying to figure out like what you need to do to move on? Oh yeah, that was cool.
true, very true, very true, very true. Any more question, by the way, ladies and gentlemen? Bármilyen más kérdés? Let us know. Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés? Any more question? Let us know. Let us know. Let's read back the chat because. Oh, okay. I thought that. Any more question, ladies and gentlemen? Any more question? Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés? Alma says that he cannot think of any more questions because. Oh no, he had something on his tongue, but he cannot remember. Okay,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
okay, okay, okay,
No worries.
okay. Do you think like in the future people will be like more open-minded about being creative? Like we discussed it before that nowadays, we both you and me feel like a lot of people are still scared. But do you think like there will be a time and place where like people will be more open-minded about being creative? And what do you think will be like that click for the society as whole?
I don't know about society as a whole,
Okay,
but what I can say is that there are more tools
I see.
to be creative.
I see.
You now can make a movie on your phone.
True, true, true,
Um,
true,
you can use, digital art and be less afraid because it's so easy to erase and, change your mind. And
true, true, true,
music, eh, yeah, I think they're just more tools for creativity. And when those tools become more more and more accessible, more people will say, "Yeah, I'll try that." Sure.
I see.
So yay for the digital digital creativity. It brings
True,
it you
true,
don't
true.
need I mean, think about how much you needed in the past to make a movie, and
True,
now you can make one on your phone
true,
and post it and get an audience.
true. Very true.
Yeah.
We touched here a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to add to the whole? As we talked, as we touched a lot of topics.
Support indie authors, you guys. You know, it's not everything that comes out of mainstream publishing is all that there is. And if you go to, TikTok or Instagram or Blue Sky, you can connect with people who are taking the leap and putting their own creative efforts out there, and they deserve an audience.
True,
So
true,
support indie authors.
true, 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 true. Is it hard, by the way, to
Indie,
promote your craft? How do you feel about it? Like, is it hard nowadays to
I think
promote?
that I've been spending like last December, I had never been on TikTok before, and TikTok has
I see.
a whole book talk community there. People who love books, they live and breathe books, and so for an indie author to connect with them, it's like you've got people who want to read your work. So yeah, last December I had zero. Now I have 7,200 TikTok followers, which, I guess in the scheme of things, 7,200 people is like from zero. That sounds pretty
True,
good.
true, true, true. Very true.
But what I like about it is that there's an acceptance and a welcoming feel to the community there. And so promoting your work to a group that already wants to know about new books and titles seems less hard than standing on a street corner and saying, "Read my book."
Very true, very true. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, it's work and it's constant, but it's not. It's fun. It's fun to get the feedback. It's
true,
fun
true,
to
true,
have people say, "Oh, I read your book. I loved it."
true,
That's that kind of immediacy and that kind of instant connection with a writer
true,
is really valuable. Just so your listeners know, I mean, it's like being a writer is like living in a cave.
true,
It's very isolating, and so when you put your work out there and people respond to it, it's like, oh, there's a light inside this cave, and the light is welcoming, and
true,
it's and people are saying, thank you for writing this book. It meant
true,
something to me. It's like,
true,
okay, so all those months in the cave meant something to people.
true,
And that's why I do it.
true, true, true. I just checked if Alma got remembered his question, but no, he's still not remembering it. Okay, okay.
Okay, Alma.
So my closing question would be summarizing everything that we told here. What
Uh-huh.
would be your message, or what was your message when you're writing all of your books? Because I feel like there are some core, very positive personal aspects in your life that you always wanted to give with your books. At least that's how I feel when I read your books. Do you feel like there was always a hidden message that you wanted to give to the readers, to the people who read your books?
Well,
And
I have
if yes,
nonfiction.
what?
Yeah, I have nonfiction books that are there are no hidden messages. It's like
I see.
real friends versus the other
I
kind.
see.
It's like how to teaching kids to be good people. These are the titles. There are no hidden messages there. When it comes to fiction and story, either picture books for children, which I have several, and big novels. I, I feel like it's really the choices you make matter.
I
How
see.
you treat people matters, and when you when you take responsibility for the choices you make, you feel better about yourself, and life is filled with fewer apologies
I
and
see.
more celebrations.
I see.
So be nice.
I see.
Yeah, be good. It feels good to be good.
True, 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 true. But I think, by the way, this message of yours is still there in your latest books, in my opinion, at least. At least that's how I view it when I read it.
Yeah, for sure. And when you read the next one, I hope you will.
I will.
It's called Lita
Let me
Lita
know when it's out,
Simto.
and I will.
March, yes.
Okay. By the way,
March 11th.
will there be a physical form as well? Like, is it?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Wait till you see the cover. The cover is like,
Yeah, I've seen it. I've
wow.
seen it. I wasn't sure if it's like digital only
No,
or like physical.
you haven't seen the cover yet. It hasn't been revealed.
No, I've seen something. It wasn't it. It was
Yes.
like just a.
What you saw, it says not final art.
Oh. Okay.
Final art will below you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the cover reveal is starting on December 1st, as I said. But yeah, the idea of a it's like being an outsider, finding your people. This is something I like to explore
I see.
because I think many creative people feel like outsiders.
True. And I think
And
every one of us, because at the end of the
everyone
day,
feels like
yeah, true. In some way, at least, yeah.
in some way. And it's like no one should ever feel like an outsider all the
True.
time. And if you have the ability to ask for what you need, you're more likely to get what you need.
True.
And so that takes courage. And it also takes speaking up, and it takes listening.
True.
And these are all life skills. So I'll probably always be writing stories that have something to do with that. But the stories will always be very, very different. Someone once said that there are only like 5 stories in the world anyway. I think it's the ancient Greeks said there's only like 5 real stories in the world, and everything else is like a variation on those themes. So, and I couldn't tell you what 5 stories are, but
Interesting.
We all think that we have unique stories, and we do have unique stories, except that there's a commonality. We're all human beings, and we all have the same emotions.
Emotions, yeah.
And when you can write a story that taps into someone's emotions, then you've written something real.
True.
That's what I hope to do.
Very true. Again, I appreciate your honesty about every topic. I really appreciate that, and that you are still, for all these years, went down the road of being creative, because I think it matters at the end of the day. I really appreciate those people who are down on the road of being creative and not stopping it, because like we need people like you who really like try to push a change in our society, on a society standard and on a personal level as well, because I feel like we could be at the right place and the right moment, every one of us. It's just like we need those people to push us, right? So yeah, I appreciate that.
We're all in this together.
True. Like you said, it little steps, right? So we have to appreciate those little steps.
Yeah.
From
but everybody is a creator. Everybody has the ability to do something.
True. Hopefully, after listening to our talk here, people will like hopefully
do
start.
Something.
Very true. Thank you, by the way, for also the questions from the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks you from the answer as well for those questions as well. Okay. Thank you, by the way, Annie, that you joined us for today's episode. Like I told you before, absolutely. I will need some more of your minutes off stream, but for those who were us with here on this episode, or will be watching back the VOD version on Twitch or on YouTube, the edited version with intro, outro, and some gameplay clips, of course, about the games, and also the cover of books that you have written to show them so they can read. Thank you for joining us for today's episode, and have a great day or night, depending where you live, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.